Hello again. It's back into the workshop, and this evening, because it is this evening, I thought we'd do something a little different. Rather than watch me fiddle away in the lathe, I'll just go through a little bit of what safety I do. Now, I watched a video yesterday on YouTube by a guy who was obviously thought he was some kind of professional, but his idea of safety on the lathe I thought was unbelievable. He was doing everything he shouldn't do. So I thought I'll add my bit to this. So a few things about being safe when using a lathe. Tip number one, guaranteed to get you thrown out of anyone's workshop. This is a lathe key. This is a chuck, as you all know. Never ever leave it like that. Guaranteed possibly to lose your job if you're in an engineering works. Yeah. As soon as the lathe starts, that's going to come flying out and either hit you, hit somebody, or clatter into the lathe bed and do it some damage. So whenever you've been using a chuck key, alright, no matter how for short an interval, even if it's just to undo the chuck, put a bit of steel in and then tighten the chuck up again, never leave it like that. Always take the chuck key out, put it somewhere safe. Keep it in your hand if need be, but always could put it somewhere safe. I always leave mine on the top there. When I've finished with it, that's where it goes. Then I know where it is when I need it, and I know it's not in there. While we're looking at the chuck, a quick word about the safety guard. Yeah, that's the safety guard for this machine. It's not interlocked. Some big machines, they're interlocked, but this one isn't because it's only a small machine. This is not to stop this machine throwing hot lumps of steel at you. All it is to protect you against this. Yeah, that's all it's for. Not to stop steel coming at you, but to stop you getting at this. It does get in the way sometimes, and sometimes, you know, if you're doing fine work in, then you can't actually do it with it down. But wherever practicable, the safety guard should always be down. Always read the lathe operating manual before you touch it. If you're new to that lathe, find out how it works before you press the go button. Because if you don't, and you make a mess of it, it'll make a mess of you. Very important, you must familiarise yourself with the lathe and all the controls. I know it sounds fairly obvious, but you'll be surprised how many people just dive in, switch it on and start turning away and wondering why it all goes pear-shaped fairly quickly. So if there's a manual with it, read it. Never leave the lathe running unattended. Yeah. If you turn your back to get another tool, answer the phone, pick your nose, scratch your bum, whatever. If you're not watching it, turn it off. Because you can be assured, as eggs is eggs, that if you leave it running and you're not watching it, it'll run into the end stop, it'll shatter the tool, something will go wrong, and you'll have an expensive job on your hands. Or it could shatter the tool and send it in your direction. Never leave it running unattended. Next one concerns clothing. Yeah, items of clothing. No dangly clothing, because what you don't want to do is get tangled up in the chuck. That's spinning around. You get your clothing tangled in it. There's plenty of videos on YouTube if you want to find that one out. It'll pull you in, spit you out in pieces. Earphones and hoods is also a no-no because you can't see what's going on. Hoods especially, you lose your peripheral vision. It might be cold in the workshop, put a woolly hat over your head, but no hoods. No earphones, because once again, when you're turning, you're listening to what the machine's doing. Bit of music on in the background is fine, but if you can't hear what the machine's doing, it might be telling you something. The tool might be chattering. If you can't hear it, then something's liable to go wrong. Gloves, again, same as dangly clothing. Never wear gloves on a lathe, or usually on any rotating machinery, because if your glove catches, it'll pull your hand in and make jam out of it. Yeah, so no gloves. If you've got long hair like mine, not many people do. I know it doesn't look like I've got long hair, but I've got a bit at the back there. Always tied back. Yeah, never have it leaning forward, because once again, this is also on YouTube if you want to go and see it. Yeah, it will not just pull your hair out your head, it will take your scalp off your head. You'll not end up with bald, but you'll end up with bald with no skin on your bonds. Yeah, and you'll be very ill. You won't be happy at all, in fact. PPE, yeah, personal protective equipment. Overalls, boots, yeah. Not shorts, because hot metal coming off a lathe, it's going to get down your shoes, your socks, it gets everywhere. Yeah, so you need to be zipped up tight. Overalls, I haven't got my overalls on, but you need to be zipped up tight, because you don't want anything down there, because it will burn. Some people say short sleeves are fine, at least you're not going to get your sleeves tangled up. But if you have got sleeves, they don't want to be dangling, yeah, they need to be elasticated quite tight to get the wrist, once again, because you don't want to get caught in the chuck. Eye protection is a biggie, yeah, I use these. Very good, yeah. Not only stops metal chips but various other things, and what you're looking for when you buy them is, and it says here, it should be marked EN 166. Yeah, that's the CE mark. That means it's up to standard. Yeah. Don't rely on ordinary glasses, don't rely on sunglasses, safety glasses. There's no substitute. In a big workshop, you might find there's a lot of you working together, practical jokes here, prodding and poking, don't do it. Once again, we're talking about rotating machinery. It only takes one nudge, yeah, and the guy next to you is up to his elbows in rotating chuck, yeah. Or if it's a pillar drill, it'll be in there. If it's a milling machine, even worse, yeah. Someone's going to get hurt. Don't do it. It's a no-no. Always double check before you turn the lathe on to make sure your work is secured properly. Yeah. Whether it's turning between centres, whether you're turning down a length of steel supported by a live centre, or if it's a long piece of metal you're turning and you can't support it at one end, or you can only support it rather at the chuck end, then you need a fixed steady to support it. Because otherwise it'll just waggle about, the tool will chatter, the steel will try and climb over the top of the tool, and it'll make a hell of a mess, and it won't work. When you're working near the chuck, and you will be, yeah, when you're doing surface finish, that kind of thing, you'll be there with a bit of emery cloth, maybe some wire wool cloth with a bit of polish on it. Be very careful when you're near the chuck. Quite a few of us have had rat knuckles, which is, you know, part of the course, but you don't want to get trapped in there once again. It's always worth remembering that rotating machinery bites. Yeah? It's not going to give in, your body's going to give in. The body is quite a squishy thing, and a lathe is a big lump of metal, some of which is rotating quite fast, quite powerfully, and it won't hesitate to rip your arm off and beat you around the head with a soggy end. So always be careful. Never reach across a spinning chuck for obvious reasons. Once again, if you're reaching across, the chuck is spinning, yeah, catches your sleeve, down you go. Okay, filing on a lathe. Sometimes you need to file on a lathe just to deburr it. Yeah, here's the kind of file. Yeah, got a nice wooden handle at one end. Normally, most people are right-handed, hold a file like that. On a lathe, you hold it left-handed. Yeah, and you file with your left hand supporting it with the right hand, because what's going to happen, you guessed it, can't you? If this digs in or it catches the chuck, it's going to throw it backwards. Yeah. And if you're out the way of it, it's just going to throw it in that direction. It's not going to hit you. Yeah, which is the important thing. You don't want to be struck by anything coming off the lathe, so if you're holding it in your left hand, it'll fire off to your left. Whereas if you're holding it to your right, it'll fire off into you. Yeah. So, filing on the lathe, where are we? Filing on the lathe with the left hand. Also, while we're on the files, I've got another one here. You guess what's wrong with that? Yeah. There is no handle on the tang end. So if you're filing with a file without a handle, yeah, you got a nice pointy end there. So you know what's going to happen if the lathe fires that at you, don't you? It's going to stick in you or stick in somebody. Yeah. So never use a file at all without a handle over the tang. Always fit a wooden handle or plastic handle. They're cheap enough. Most files now come with them fitted. Yeah. So there's no excuse. Never use a file without a handle on it. Okay, we're getting pretty close to the end of this now. Everyone's possibly fed up with the sound of my voice. So, a couple more things. If you're ever in an environment and you've been given instructions, do this, do that, you know, take so many thou off, points, what's it of a mill, whatever, and you're busy working away, and all of a sudden your brain goes blank. Yeah. Just switch the machine off, go and find someone who knows what they're doing. Yeah. Especially if you're in a training environment, if you're in a school, yeah, and you get someone like me as an instructor who says, this is what I want you to do, this is how I want you to do it, any problems, come and get me. What I don't want is for you to go, oh, what was it you said? Well, I don't know, I'll carry on anyway. Yeah, press the go button, it all goes bananas, bits and pieces flying everywhere, you know, and then you're walking up to me going, oh, bust it. Yeah, turn it off. If at all you're unsure, turn it off. Have a rethink on what you're doing. Reference to the drawing, whatever paperwork you've got, or to an instructor if you're in a training environment. Yeah. Always. It's safer that way. No one will think you're a pillock just because you've forgotten. We all forget sometimes. Yeah, all of us. So if you're unsure, turn it off, recheck what you're supposed to be doing. When you've finished with your work for the day, or you finished the job you're doing, if a lathe, like in a school, is a shared asset and it's not your everyday tool, so when you're finished with it, isolate the power, because there will be a power isolator that your instructor or floor manager will have shown you. Isolate the power, clean the lathe down, ready for the next occupant. It's always good practice to clean the lathe down anyway, after you've used it. Otherwise the swarf just builds up to a point where you can't do anything because you're knee deep in the stuff. Yeah. So when you're finished, or at the end of the day, isolate the power, clean down your machine and your work area. Never leave the key in the chuck. That is a no-no. If there's a manual with the machine and you're new to the machine, always read the manual. Familiarise yourself with the controls. Yeah. Minimise mistakes. Never leave a lathe running unattended. Yeah. Do not wear any dangly clothing, earphones, hoods or gloves, and long hair must be tied back out the way. PPE at all times, especially eye protection. Always double check before you start the machine going that your work is supported and isn't going to flap about and break. Keep your fingers clear of the rotating machinery and the cutting tools. Yeah. There are one or two times when you can get in there, but not when you're cutting. Because always remember, rotating machinery bites, and it will do, and it hurts. For filing operations, hold the file in the left hand, and never use a file without a handle on it. And remember, if you're at all unsure on what to do, ask someone else rather than risk it. Yeah. And at the end of the day, clean your machine down and isolate the power. That way, if you follow those simple steps on a regular basis, you'll get used to doing it, and it'll become second nature. Yeah. Safety is an important thing. Yeah. There's only one of you, so you're special. And also, when it comes to eye protection, I'll say this again, yeah, always wear safety glasses. Don't stitch arms back on, don't stitch legs back on, don't replace your heart, your lungs, your nose, but not your eyes. No one's perfected that yet. You only get 2 of them, and you're buggered without them, especially when it comes to being an engineer. Well, that's the end of that. Thanks for watching. Don't know I'll be back on again, but please feel free to leave any comments in the doodly down below, and please subscribe, and thank you for watching. Bye for now.